Welcome back, you guys. I want to take you through my first, let's see, it would be the first 20 measures of my arrangement. So for what it's worth, I'm going to show you what I did and explain a few things as we go along here. So the beginning, as you remember, I made a point of saying that sometimes the brass can be used against the saxes in a more powerful way than maybe George had done. And so my introduction basically mirrors his, but I changed it around a little bit. In a minute, what I'll do is I'll play this for you. I decided to do a straight eighth combined with some swing, and I'll show you. But you'll notice that I did a line here in the saxes against harmonic and rhythmic hits for the brass. So I didn't start on the tonic. I started on a B13 sharp 11 chord. As you can see, the lead trumpet has an F all the way across, and then we end on a higher note there. So harmonically it's different, and rhythmically it's different. So I took some of the things that he had done, and to illustrate it, I wanted to show you some of these things. So I used sus chords as he did, and I also used some sharp 11 chords, which gives it some flavor as well. So you can hear this when I play it, but let's go on. After the introduction, remember I was talking about sections and no cross-section writing. So I wanted to do some cross-section writing here. What I did was I basically have four lines going on, and that is separated or is distributed amongst the band 2 players per line. So if you notice here, after this big dramatic hit here, we have a railroad tracks, which means that the time basically stops. And the reason I did that is because guys have flugelhorn here. I forgot to put flugelhorn. But this right here in the trumpets is going to be flugelhorn. So what we've got is 3 flugelhorns, 2 on the lead, 1 coupled with alto sax. And you'll see why I did only 1 alto sax there with a flugelhorn in a minute, because of what comes later. I did basically 2 tenor saxes for the 3rd line and trombone 2 and 3 for line 4. So when you hear that, you're basically going to hear contrapuntal lines playing against the melody. Now you'll notice that mine has rests in it, not just every beat. And you'll also notice that everybody doesn't have the same rhythm all the time. We've got lines moving here. So guys can play these as musically as they want. Hopefully I put enough dynamics and musical things in there. This is a thing that kind of needs to be rehearsed. Everybody needs to cut off like on beat 1 and so on and so forth. So I separated the melody out and had it basically accompanied by harmonic and moving lines. So you'll hear that in a minute. Notice I have no rhythm section. So this can be conducted, or basically the flugelhorns can take the lead and everybody else can follow. You shouldn't really need a conductor. At rehearsal, you can tell the guys, listen, the flugelhorns have a pickup. I went back and forth on this flugelhorn. I really wanted a more mellow sound, but we're coming off a really loud trumpet thing here, so they needed time. It doesn't take very long to pick up a flugelhorn. So you got to remember that they do have to put their trumpet down and pick up a flugel, but one hand can do one thing and the other hand can grab the flugel. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal, so I chose to do that. I also have straight eighths, so you'll notice that this is all played, very smooth and classically, really. What I did was I brought in the rhythm section right here on the turnaround. So we come right to this B flat on the second A section. And the reason I didn't have alto is because I wanted the alto to play the lead here just by himself. What happens here, I tell the alto to play freely here so they can kind of mess with that melody. But then I tell them to play as written here because I brought in the second flugelhorn again. And I did that because the other players are coming in. I needed a little more power, I felt, on the melody. And as you can see, I wrote out bass and I wrote out piano. Now generally when I write out piano, I usually do, for the most part, probably 90%, I do 4-note voicings. And I do that because it's easy to read. A pro can actually play the notes or they can play changes here, but I felt that in this moving lines here, we needed piano to reflect, and I'll probably tell the player to do as written here. So you'll notice that generally, now here's a couple of lines that I needed to get reflected in the piano part, as are in the horns here. So the biggest thing I want you to see is notice how the band is not in sections. It's playing as a band. You have 17 you could say 17 colors, and I'm using those. Sometimes it's a whole section, but notice this. The bari sax doesn't come in till there, even though I have the other guys coming in here. So once you got the lines set, you can kind of distribute them around and get a really nice sound going between the sections. Okay, I won't go into the bridge now, but I did go into swing at the bridge, and that's when the bass player walks. So the bass player is kind of playing not a walking type of thing, as you can see down here. Well, let's get past here. Comes in. I just have him in here not necessarily walking, playing more of a ballad type of thing. Once we hit the bridge, he's going to walk. So the other thing about the drums is I have them play brushes when he comes in the second 8, and then I have him changing to sticks at the swing part. Okay, so let me play this for you. Unfortunately, you can't see it all, but I have a few pages of score there in concert pitch, so you can take a look at that. Now, obviously, Finale is not the greatest when it comes to playing back. You'll notice how there was no flugel sound here. It was a trumpet sound because I don't have a flugel sound. And, it's hard to get the balance and things. And Finale doesn't play extremely musical either. So, but you get the idea. I did want to point out those things. So hopefully, that shows you some things you can do. I think the biggest thing to get out of this is the cross-section writing. I really love to do that, especially when you got a nice melody like this. Use every instrument just almost like a soloist, but then mix them together and you'll have a really nice ensemble sound. So if you have any questions, please leave them below as usual.